Mirror's Edge, released at the end of 2008. It is undoubtedly an indelible mark in gaming history. 2010, I discovered this game and became completely obsessed with it. Now 15 years have passed. I tried to find resonance in online videos, but no one seemed to speak my mind, so I had to explore the paths of my own heart. In terms of gameplay, Dying Light of 2015 also incorporated first-person parkour elements, but all I remembered was the terror of a dog chase. Take the game Assassin's Creed, which allows players to effortlessly traverse mountains and valleys. This kind of limitless freedom still didn't spark any desire in me to play. Speaking of aesthetics, games like Control, Cyberpunk 2077, and countless others each boast their own unique geometric design, but none have left such stirring memories. To know what makes Mirror's Edge unique, it deserves a deeper, more detailed discussion. I actually pondered it for a long time, but was completely at a loss, until I accidentally opened a video, simply observing the game's various scenes, and listening to the background music, which hit me with an emotion that nearly brought me to tears. I suddenly understood. It is precisely this visual communicative art aesthetic that truly reaches the soul. We often say that this game's visuals remain timeless even today. But the paintings in museums have been existing for centuries. So how could art ever be outdated? Let's start with art. Playing Mirror's Edge is like stepping into a contemporary art gallery, where in this exhibit, you can observe the following characteristics. Minimalism, a style that emphasizes negative space, simplicity and layering, no longer relying on elaborate imagery or explicit meaning. The visuals may seem sparse, but they are actually more refined and focused on the essence of the work. The abundant negative space offers limitless scope for imagination, producing an effect where less is truly more, and the observer becomes completely immersed in the artwork. Color, texture, space, shadows, and lighting are all you truly experience. Most of the time, artwork requires a wealth of information and metaphors, much like an oil painting, seeking always for record and symbolic expression, an outward-seeking force, while minimalism is more about inward restraint. This artistic style has profoundly influenced both industry and technology, and is also a form of self-discovery, and one way to return to oneself. Brutalism. Its name comes from French. I can't even pronounce it, and it means raw concrete. This style brutally showcases the hard quality of concrete through exposed structures and geometric lines. It emphasizes the functionality of architecture, rather than its commercial appeal, aiming to strip away all traces of capitalist excess, embodying both strength and ruggedness, and evoking an almost oppressive sense of transcendent humanity and aesthetics. In the realm of subconscious limits in the movie Inception, the limbo sequences employ the architect's brutalist style, which is also a typical example of dystopian architecture. Cold abstraction or geometric abstraction. Mondrian's use of red, yellow, and blue is emblematic of this art form. In these paintings, there is no literal meaning or content, instead focusing solely on lines, shapes, and blocks of color, while maintaining a minimalist approach. In this painting, red dominates the composition, evoking a deep and intense love, courage, and strength. This passion pushes the other colors into the corners, resulting in a highly discordant composition. Blue conveys melancholy, reason and calm. Yellow radiates vitality, warmth and hope. And white and black create contrast and separation, making up the remaining scene, maintaining order. If you adjust these colors, saturation, rearrange them, you can get a new feeling. In this picture, there seems to be a new balance between calm energy and affection. Realism. Next, let's take a look at this painting. It uses white as the main color of the scene. What do you feel again? Feel the emotion in Edward Hopper's painting. Doesn't this look like a scene from your dream? Because the artist blends abstraction and reality in a certain proportion, assigning subconscious emotions to reality. This creates a new connection between consciousness and tangible reality. Familiar objects suddenly become unfamiliar. A white wall with volume and light shadow replaces the original white. The sea and sky replace the blue. The red sofa and the green carpet become the background, left blank and pressed in the corner by azure. The lighting in the scene isn't cast according to the real door frame's shape, but is a shape freely created by Edward Hopper. The contrast between light and shadow, and the contrast between the narrow background and the vast outdoors, makes one want to leave this lonely room, to welcome the hopeful sunlight and sea. This is what the painting looks like in reality. It's a corner of the artist's home. You can see how he gradually reworks reality into emotion. He first changed the direction of the door, then removed the picture frame on the wall, pulled in the seascape, and used bright blocks of color with minimalist white, creating a feeling that blurs dream and reality. I want everyone to remember this feeling, because Mirror's Edge heavily uses this blend of reality and illusion in its visual design. Hopper's process of turning reality into art is very interesting, and designing and refining game art concepts is also a deeply challenging task. For this, I specifically found art lectures from the development team in 2010 and 2020. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any video record of the 2010 lecture, only 2 valuable PDF slides. These slides were left by the rendering lead, Henrik Halén. He mainly explains the game style and lighting techniques. The 2020 lecture has a video on YouTube. The art director of Mirror's Edge Catalyst shared the process of forming the game style at GDC. In the PDF, Henrik wrote, "The game enhances sensory experience, uses strong colors, minimalist stylized visuals, color contrast and lighting contrast, plus full-screen special effect filters." He also mentioned the city design inspiration comes from 3 real cities. Can you guess which ones? Pause for a moment. Give your answers in the comments. Erase the answer. They are New York, Rio de Janeiro, and Tokyo. In fact, the game's initial design mainly used New York style. This is what the early game city looked like. Doesn't it have a familiar dirty look? That's right, games from that era often had this color tone. GTA 4, Max Payne 3, Need for Speed 9, Resident Evil 4 and 5, Fallout New Vegas, Call of Duty 5, Far Cry 2, Deus Ex, Metal Gear Solid 4, and so on. So how do you feel when seeing such scenes? The designs of various buildings and glass skyscrapers are not postmodern. They probably have a history of decades. From today's perspective, they might not even be considered modernist. Even though there's blue sky in the scene, it's suppressed by this yellowish lighting, making the game time feel like dusk. A time when the world is most weary. The grimy dust on the surfaces of concrete buildings. It coats the exhaust fan's metal with a layer of black dust. The gases coming out of the exhaust fans look like oily fumes. This gives the entire ground a greasy, stained reflection. In the distance, the scene is shrouded in a hazy mist, making the heat even more unbearable. This frame's realistic depiction of New York City might account for 95%. Only the remaining 5% is painted in an unremarkable dark red that serves as a visual cue for players. It seems that this world lacks vitality. It makes it nearly impossible to run around. If the game scenes were really designed like this, they would end up like that dying light, becoming a ray of dying light in my memory. Fortunately, the art team didn't stop there. They chose to use Tokyo as the primary style reference once again, merging the styles of these 3 cities into one. This marked a great turning point. Just like Edward Hopper's method of drawing inspiration from reality and refining it, Spielberg's sci-fi films The Minority Report, its design philosophy is that you don't have to invent an entirely new society to portray the future. The production team behind Catalyst completely adopted this methodology. That is, they started by drawing from real life, then integrated elements of artistic expression. If the early scenes of Mirror's Edge were overly realistic, then the early scenes of Catalyst are excessively abstract. So the team adjusted the ratios of realism to futurism to 70-30. Increasing the realism is beneficial, as it allows players to grasp the game's scenes more concretely. But I still think the final product of Catalyst is too futuristic. We'll talk about that at the end of the video. In order to create a bright, pure, and immaculate future world, they adopted white, symbolic of French elegance, as the primary color. This is a form of minimalism. If less is more is the guiding principle a game should follow, then Mirror's Edge is that game. In fact, this approach also fits the storyline. The extensive use of white reflects the control over space in a dystopian world, as well as surveillance. This control eliminates all distracting elements in the city. But this world hasn't reached the level of Orwell's 1984. It is still a livable city, so the visuals still need to feature vibrant colors. In the end, white was chosen as the dominant tone. And there's another advantage. White further accentuates highly saturated colors. On a pristine canvas, any color that appears becomes a focal point. Thus, designers must ensure that every color in the game has a purpose. To strike the right balance, the team went to Tokyo for inspiration. They discovered that Tokyo's urban landscape is not only dominated by white, but more interestingly, the city boasts numerous organic, asymmetrical buildings. They observed how skyscrapers weave through clusters of buildings and interact with them. All these designs served as excellent references. Here, I'd like to cite photographer Liam Wang's work in Tokyo, so that everyone can more intuitively feel the connection between Tokyo's architectural style and the game's visuals. Just as photographers adjust colors in post-production, the design team also processed real-life images. The first step was to remove impurities and dirt. This resulted in a physically plausible and elegant building. This style already bears a striking resemblance to that of Mirror's Edge. However, the Catalyst team wanted to do something different from the previous work. They added that 30% of technological and futuristic elements, then infused it with their own design attitude, capturing the layered essence of this world, resulting in this kind of visual. Finally, the design director specifically emphasized the importance of narrative in this design. Every change must have a coherent rationale. For example, the story behind this image is about the transition from the old to the new, ensuring that the side of the building facing the camera remains immaculate. Make the mirror surface reflect commercial flair and flashiness, while preserving the dirtiness and sense of achievement of real residential spaces in the distance, so players have a coherent experience when passing through this area. A seamless experience. The trip to Tokyo gave the team new design ideas. The game production team then started building and debugging the scenes. They first confirmed the basic white membrane structure, so they wouldn't have to revise repeatedly later. On top of that, they added detailed connecting buildings and paths players needs to pass through. Then they added more realistic elements, like air conditioner units outside residential spaces, billboards, pipes, and wiring, etc., so players can understand that this is a tangible reality. During this process, the game team also followed a very important principle, that reality is imperfect. The design director came to Tokyo, saw the shiny, glamorous city, then walked into the building clusters, seeing those poorly maintained, slightly dilapidated alleys. This contrasting feeling helped them shape the realistic scenes on Mirror's Edge. They wanted to create a white world that retained details, because if the whole city were a minimalist white membrane, the scene would be too abstract, fake, and cold. Players in the world, if they don't have realistic emotions and stories to cling to, the gaming experience becomes easily forgettable. But this is precisely the artistic style many indie games like to use. For example, the 2015 platformer Refunct. The DLC Desmond's Journey from Assassin's Creed. Mirror's Edge wants to tell the story of faith, so the team restrained this abstract divergent thinking and focused more on realism. While in the DLC speedrun mode, they made the world surreal in style. So you see some scenes given more history. Players also see more wear and dirtiness. They kept the real imperfections in the materials, like cracks on walls and uneven surfaces. And this approach also logically fits the story. In the game's backdrop, the government is unwilling to maintain rooftops and corners, because these are strictly controlled activity areas. People shouldn't come here, so there is more disorder here. People in this world should be working hard in factories, ports, and offices. Indoor scenes there are more orderly, using less white and more highly saturated colors to highlight the contrast between inside and outside. In this spotless world, trees, vehicles, and buildings can all be white, but no matter how clean the exterior, there are dim construction sites, dark elevator shafts, creepy ventilation ducts, stuffy steam rooms, and dark, damp sewers. Players who experience these contrasting scenes will also feel the pure whiteness of the whole city, which subtly reveals the illusion's falseness, while the disorderly side adds a sense of warmth and reality to this city. Of course, achieving artistic visuals in the game. Lighting technology is also very important. At that time, they used radiation shading normal map technology. Radiosity normal maps. It's a compound term. Radiosity means radiation shading. It is a technique that simulates diffuse reflection lighting. It can store the irradiance from a single direction, providing a more realistic radiation effect than direct lighting. Normal maps are a technique used to create a sense of depth and detail on flat textures. Of course, the model itself remains flat. Radiosity normal maps combines both techniques. It's a very old but powerful lighting technique. It was also used in Half-Life 2. If you're interested, you can check out Gary McTagg's paper in the description. Instead of storing lighting from a single direction, it calculates and stores lighting from 3 orthogonal directions. This allows lighting from different normal directions to have distinct shading effects, making the lighting more realistic. You can see this scene has 3 direct light sources. They are the light on the right, the firelight in the bottom left, and the dome light above. These are their separate radiance-shaded results. This is their combined calculation result. This is the bump map of the normal map. This is the normal map, with radiance shading added. This is albedo texture, with radiance shading added. Finally, let's look at the realistic lighting effect combining all 3. This technique was also applied in Mirror's Edge. Various surface bump materials are greatly enhanced up close under first-person view thanks to this technique. It greatly increases realism. The gray wear on the floor tiles, the pockmarks on the pipes, the hazy surface of the glass, make it seem like we can actually touch these surfaces. Feel the temperature of these materials. The sound effects of touching materials with your hands in the game also greatly enhance immersion. At the same time, the team focused on fine-tuning parameters such as global lighting, photon bounce, white balance, tone curve, and contrast. They used the Beast plugin to achieve lighting effects similar to modern real-time ray tracing. But the minimum requirement was only a 6600 GT graphics card. Because these scenes are all static lighting baked in advance by the rendering team, all lighting had been pre-computed and converted into textures. Of course, another impressive feature in the game is its realistic physical effects, which was also a graphics card killer at the time, especially when glass shattered. It literally slowed down to a PowerPoint presentation. The application of RNM lighting technology was a very important step, because its realistic light reflections add elements of realism, making players believe in a real world, and the extensive diffuse reflection make colors bleed onto the surrounding environment. This also emphasizes the visual impact of large color blocks, giving us a stronger emotional reaction. In the end, its visual style is very different from the old, outdated scenes at the start. The colors are rich, yet still realistic. Combined with complementary color techniques, it stimulates new emotional expressions, constantly shifting and influencing the player's mood. I ran through this world full of curiosity, eagerly anticipating the scenes behind every door, taking in all the beauty deeply into my heart. A moment ago, the shiny city was suddenly wrapped in shadows by black buildings, like nightfall had come. After kicking open the door, the fresh green quickly washes away that mood. Before me is a quiet yet modern office space. After escaping here, the same technique appears again, passing through a night-like LED curtain. The blue walls and shadows create a cold atmosphere. The red in the distance stands out sharply here, symbolizing warmth. Opening the door, another intense visual contrast. The white and red walls starkly contrast with the cold, dark outdoors. Exiting the elevator reveals a dazzling pale yellow. But this yellow doesn't last long. Outside, a blue billboard appears as the complementary color. Crossing overpass, the originally flashing red and blue police lights here turn purely blue, transitioning the scene. This is also the logical unity of game aesthetics. Art surpasses reality at this moment. Stepping into the tunnel, the blue tones reach their peak. An ocean-like coldness permeates once again. At the next corner, magenta once again flips your senses. It seems the game creators always know which colors fit best, and they consistently apply this color alternation throughout the game. This is exactly what the producer wants. Every color in the game has a purpose. If you want to learn color coordination, start with this game. Notice this? Its color schemes are either solid colors, or white paired with one other color, or white paired with two complementary colors. Major color combinations generally don't exceed 3. At most, black is added. If any other color appears as an accent, it occupies only a small part of the scene, so the team truly delivers their promise. Less is more. In this world, aesthetic rules govern everything. All characters and elements must follow this design set. NPC must comply. Enemies must comply. You are no exception. The art director says, "We never exaggerate body proportions, especially female body proportions, objectifying and sexualizing female bodies. This is common in other game designs. But it's not elegant, so we don't do it." Hence, the character attire you see here combines realism and aesthetics. It is elegant, also simple and fashionable. Functionally, it is sporty and realistic. Even with this minimalistic color scheme, the final product avoids wild futuristic designs. You'll see real-life places like subways and malls, construction sites, freight yards, warehouses, logistics parks, sewers, Ro-Ro ship holds, ports, and other familiar scenes. These realistic environments help preserve the city's warmth, culture, and history, and bring out distinct colors, allowing players to intuitively feel that, this indeed isn't 1984, but an era very similar to our world. And the beauty of this world is constantly evolving. The detailed depiction of material handling elements in the game adds to this sense of dynamism, letting you feel the world's vitality. Inside the scenes, you see hand trucks, forklifts, cargo trucks, Ro-Ro ships, cranes, port gantry cranes, and various material handling equipment that let you sense the city's flowing lifeblood of transportation. Unfinished building materials scattered around, massive and imposing cranes, heavy, dangerous steel pipes, concrete and soil piles, shrink-wrapped cartons, pallets all evoke a story waiting to be told. You'll know that this frozen moment on the canvas is just an instant in its artistic career. Without you, this world still goes on. This is using stillness to accentuate movement. Of course, the roaring cooling fans in the scene, the transparent waterproof cloth fluttering in the air, or the banners carrying slogans. are clear examples of visual dynamics, and the urban soundscape playing in your ears. With car horns, the sound of tires screeching, and the noise of construction, their purpose is not only to make us feel this world's vitality, but also to let us experience the quiet of the moment. At this stage, this feeling is most apparent. When I was halfway up, and growing impatient from getting lost or making mistakes, I suddenly noticed that the world outside was still running in an orderly fashion, and I felt an expansive sense of calm. It was as if it were telling you that it's okay to pause, because you are completely safe. So somehow, I began to notice pedestrians strolling back and forth outside the window, and the fluttering flags mesmerized me.
Shit, I missed it, Mark.
That sensation of being overwhelmed by the game's dynamics gave me a moment of safety to watch the world breathe. It happened many times in the game, and I have no idea why it happens. Yet every time I paused, I felt a deep, tear-inducing emotion. Perhaps this is beauty at its finest. At that moment, it felt as though I truly existed in this world, interacting with the city, while its elegant artistic touch allowed me to escape the burdens of reality and be enveloped by the world's vitality. How could such an exquisitely beautiful world ever be easily forgotten? So that's all I've said, though it seems I haven't captured everything about this world. Perhaps this is the power of art. It defies description and can only be felt and understood with your heart. For some reason, the level design of Mirror's Edge always reminds me of another game, the Half-Life series. What shocked me was, I only then discovered that one of the map's creators, Robert Briscoe, had hidden plenty of Easter eggs in the map. Easter eggs that turned out to be maps he made for another game. And these maps are exactly the ones from the Half-Life mod Restricted Zone and CS's maps Forest and Depot. This made me even more eager to uncover the link between the two games. In fact, upon closer analysis, these two games indeed share many similarities. First, Half-Life also features a dystopian setting, with player relentlessly driven by enemies, being forced to get onto rooftops, as well as along river channels and train tracks, in sewers and ventilation ducts. In Half-Life, walls marked with lambda indicate that supplies have been dropped nearby. Similarly, marked wall also signify packages around in Mirror's Edge. Half-Life often use colored surfaces to guide players forward, which mirrors the style of Mirror's Edge. Moreover, in both games, ladders are usually red, and the level design is filled with even more similar elements. For example, in the river channels of Mirror's Edge, during an airplane chase, players weave between the narrow banks, dodging helicopter attacks, and Half-Life features a similar sequence. In this scene of Mirror's Edge, players need to jump back and forth on a platform at the edge of a barrel-shaped deep pit. There's a similar scene in the crater level of Half-Life. There is also a very memorable scene in Half-Life. It's this huge slope sliding down scene. Below is a pool of irradiated water. Many headcrabs drop down from above. Actually, in Mirror's Edge, there are similar scenes that give me a similar feeling. Half-Life 2 has a level designed like this. The game hides the sniper in the dark above, making it impossible for players to shoot back. No way to fight back. You can only time carefully, hide behind various covers, and slowly creep closer, before being able to use grenades to gain the right to resist. Actually, later stages in Mirror's Edge also have similar levels. Players need to constantly time properly, to dodge between covers and creep along, finally gaining the chance to resist. Also, Mirror's Edge's love for valves makes me think a lot about Valve Corporation and their Half-Life puzzles. In Half-Life 2, there's a level in Ravenholm where you have to close valves to pass through. Of course, you can also use this to burn zombies chasing you. There are also many valves in Mirror's Edge, and similar level designs. In the Highway 17 level, you need to time properly to cross moving trains to reach the goal. Otherwise, you get knocked away, causing mission failure. There are similar level designs in Mirror's Edge as well. This level is the one that feels most like Half-Life to me. Here there's a locked office, with a note saying you need to go to another office to operate a switch, to open this door. Next, you come to a vent area full of fans. You need to get to the other side, turn off the fans, then you can pass. The game first shows you the goal, but tells you the button is in the room on the other side. This approach, along with controlling fans and solving puzzles to pass doors, is very common in Half-Life. This amazing similarity even confused my memory. I always thought this level was from Half-Life, not Mirror's Edge. Of course, this game has many other memorable level designs. For example, falling from high up onto a canvas-covered soft surface. Or jumping off a tall building like taking a leap of faith. Landing on a narrow ledge just a few decimeters wide. Or at a construction site using a heron flying kick. To kick a police officer off a tall building. Actually, the most thrilling part isn't chasing others, but being chased yourself. Mirror's Edge is no less than a horror game in this regard. SWAT will shoot wildly at your elevator. Or when a bunch of agents chase you to the elevator, you can hear their footsteps close in your ear. How to keep players quickly finding the path amid such intense chases becomes a challenge. The game always uses red as the guiding color. This is called messenger vision in the game. And by pressing the Alt key, the reticle will be placed directly at the destination. Even so, I still got lost several times. And the detection for climbing between pipes is very odd. For example, here I tried N times and still couldn't grab the pipe. It's truly baffling. Actually, the game isn't just about thrilling chases. It also incorporates some intricate pathfinding elements. If you're not quite sure of the road ahead, the game will set up a small platform, and within it, you can see the next part of the route, allowing you to plan your path and ultimately achieve your goal. Besides the visuals and level design, another truly unforgettable element is the music. The music on the main menu predominantly features futuristic electronic synthesized sounds, but it also incorporates underlying tones reminiscent of strings and choral vocals. This adds a strong emotional underpinning to the music. He didn't reveal the entire melody all at once, only for it to be buried beneath bass and electronic effects. It only fully emerges later on. feels like a continual struggle within memory, a process of groping and piecing together the melody. After the drum introduction, the entire accompaniment unfolds like a dynamic slow-motion scene. I can see the city lights that stir the soul, and even Faith's own reflection in a mirror. I can feel the intense, intertwined emotions. The song Still Alive directly features sung lyrics, using piano, violin, and other acoustic instruments to replace the technological feel of electronic effects, imbuing the scene with a more humanistic power. Everything you hear and see carries the trace of humanity. This song is placed at a pivotal moment in the game's journey. Faith reunites with her sister, the music brings back their warmth, and the players rediscover themselves. In travel media, the craze for parkour masters, the 2004 parkour film Violent Succession 13, and even the 2008 release of Assassin's Creed all challenge modern people's vision and soul. They make you want to break free from that cage, to go out and breathe some fresh air. The first-person parkour gameplay, the ultimate blend of aesthetics and futuristic electronic music. Even one of these elements alone would be enough to leave a lasting impression on a player. But Mirror's Edge in 2008 achieved all three. Mirror's Edge Catalyst, the reboot sequel, served as a catalyst, creating an open world. But the city's design style and gameplay are very different from the previous game. The entire world has lost its sense of history. The architectural style is even more inorganic. Inside and out, many modern geometric shapes have replaced the old. It's as if it's telling you, there's nothing here, and no stories have ever unfolded among the people. While playing, I couldn't help but ask myself, where is this world? Whatever happened here? But the game's cold, unyielding scenes offer only a refusal as an answer. This may be one of Catalyst's missteps. Open-world games, which emphasize storytelling, need a sense of history to create connections with the player, to drive exploration, and to allow interaction between the player and the world. Cyberpunk, Vacuum Punk, and Wasteland Punk all must be built on a sense of history, without a sense of humanity. Simply relying on first-person parkour to wander in deserted areas won't be enough to uphold this world. Gazing into the distance, there's more purple in the city, along with tones of black and deep blue. These hues make even the daytime in the game seem shrouded in the technological shadows of night, evoking a sense of oppression. Chaotic, fragmented patterns have replaced the original neat, large blocks of color. Flashy colors have taken over the formerly simple, predominantly white palette. Glass and shiny metal, neon signs and LED screens. These colder materials have replaced the once warm wooden textures. Waterproof fabric, concrete, and painted surfaces let me feel even more uneasy and isolated while playing. The elegance the art director spoke of was also disturbed by these magazines and noises. Ironically, everything he emphasized in his speech clashed with the game's visuals. He said he was afraid that game art might become too experimental, but this time it seems they really went overboard. However, the principles of less is more, the elegance of white, and the creation of a sense of storytelling do not align with the visual presentation. Besides the aesthetic conflicts, what's even more ironic is that its level design also contradicts the remarks made in interviews by the former producer. The previous game was a seamlessly flowing linear world that ensured players maintained continuous momentum while running. They deliberately didn't want players to stop moving, with musings like, should I stop now, or take on a random side quest, or run an errand, like delivering 10 pizzas or something, which disrupted the smooth flow of the game. But in Catalyst's visuals, all we could see were collectibles scattered like in an open world. Everything was telling me that they really did go too far. There wasn't the narrative depth needed for immersion, nor the coherence required for gameplay. Ubisoft have ruined almost all of their IPs through these 2 points. The Mafia 3 produced by the team leader who jumped from Ubisoft was also ruined, with both the visuals and gameplay venturing off the beaten path. I chose to get a refund. So what are your impressions of these 2 games? Feel free to leave a comment below. That's all for this video. Sharing this with you is my joy. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.